الله 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 نور السماوات والأرض. Lantern of light, evolving together.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to all our respected attendees from all over the globe. I would like to warmly welcome you all for joining us today on this empowering and insightful discussion on how your own wounded inner child impacts your parenting. This is your host, Sakina Habib, for the evening. And Alhamdulillah, I would like to thank each one of you for joining us on today's podcast and for taking your precious time. And before we move on, I would like to start off with Dua Faraj so that we can remember Imam Zamana, Ajallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif, and pray for his safety. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum ajma'in. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. اللهم كل وليك الحجة ابن الحسن عليه السلام صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم أجمعين. We pray that wherever our Imam is, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep him safe, especially during these hard times that we are witnessing today, inshallah. Now, alhamdulillah, we thank Allah for this soulful platform that has allowed us to delve deeper into our faith and our purpose. Over the last 4 years, Lantern of Light has been a safe voice and has been able to provide a safe space to grow inwardly throughout provoking podcasts on taboo topics and courses on growing our faith and spirituality, seeking the light of God. And so therefore, I would like to request each one of you out there to please make sure to subscribe to our channel, to make sure that you do like today's program, give us your comments and feedback, and share it as much as possible. You know, among the many projects that we support and sponsor, we are always looking for ways to fill in the gaps through learning and sharing. Please donate generously towards the amazing services that we provide by donating to our website on www.lanternoflight.org.uk. Moving on to our today's fundamental topic, how your own wounded inner child impacts your parenting. Now, this is a very in-demand, topic, a very popular one. I'm sure a lot of parents really want to know, what is the inner child? How does it have a blueprint impact on children today? How can we reparent ourselves with all the traumas and the wounds that we've held onto for a very long time? Now, when we just talk about the inner child, it actually represents the emotional experiences and memories from our childhood, including both joyful and painful moments. When these experiences are unresolved, they manifest as wounds, which can significantly affect adult behavior, particularly in parenting. And these wounds often stem from unmet relational needs during childhood, such as love, acceptance, and safety. So parents with unresolved inner child wounds may react, differently in different situations. Anyways, in order to understand more about reparenting and its critical process for healing these wounds, I would like to welcome our special esteemed guest on today's program, Sister Sabika Rezavi. Sister Sabika is a reparenting coach, facilitator, and TEDx speaker. She specializes in working with the inner child, childhood wounds, traumas, and unmet needs. Sabika guides adults to reparent themselves and to nurture these wounds so you can create relationships where you are thriving, not just surviving. She explains our childhood wounds from a blueprint which unconsciously hinders us from actively growing in our intimate and parenting relationships. So, without much further ado, I would like to welcome Sabika on board, and she will explain us more and give us a brief intro of what reparenting is and who it is for, how it affects us generally, and everything else. So I would like to welcome Sabika. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sabika, thank you so much for joining me today.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and salam to all of the guests and the attendees that are joining us today. It's honestly my honor to join you and to talk about this topic that I am so passionate about, and it's so extensive and important for us to understand. So again, thank you for the introduction as well. So beautifully said, and you've given a few golden nuggets. So it's nice that the attendees and the beautiful souls that are listening today already know a bit of what's to come. Okay.
Yeah.
When it comes to our children, I'm a mother of 3 myself. I've got 3 children under the age of 10. So this hits home. It hits home deeply. I've been through this journey. I know the impact. I know how these things can help and how these things can change and impact our children as well. So when I talk to you, I talk to you from my heart as a mum, as well as a reparenting coach at the same time. Okay,
perfect.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be a little bit cheeky here, Sister Sakina, and I'm going to funnel it a bit. So I'm going to give a bit of wide information so we understand definitions. So we're speaking to the wider audience. There could be people who are not parents who have joined here today, and then kind of funnel it in and direct it directly towards parents at the same time. Okay, so everyone gets a bit of everything. Sound good?
Yes, absolutely. We're ready to hear you.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So I'm going to start with the concept of reparenting. Okay. So the reason why I want to start with this definition is because sometimes it can get a bit confusing and people misinterpret what the concept of reparenting is. So the definition or the idea of reparenting is that we as individuals, so individual people, you yourself, Sakina, and myself, Sarika, and whoever else there is out there who's listening, are individual people, adults, who have had a childhood, and now we have noticed ourselves, and we have decided, without blame of our parents, and I say this on every single platform I talk on, without blame of our parents, we accept that we may have some traumas, wounds, unmet needs, and we've now taken that responsibility to say, I'm going to give myself what I need, and I'm going to parent myself and be the parent that I needed. You're not replacing your parent, you're not blaming them. All you're saying is, I know myself best apart from Allah, and now I can give myself what I need, right? Also, the word trauma can sometimes be a little bit scary for people. Some people might see the word trauma as a life or death situation, or something that is quite severely catastrophic in the sense of death, basically. It doesn't have to be like that. Anything can be internalized as a trauma, okay? So not receiving the hugs that you needed, not receiving the attention that you needed, not having the conversation or the support that you needed through a difficult time during childhood can be interpreted individually as a trauma, okay? So a trauma for you could not be a trauma for me. It's how we internalize it. And it's the same along with siblings. You may find that your siblings may internalize a certain way that you've been raised, traumatic, and then the other sibling doesn't. And it's because, alhamdulillah, mashallah, we're all individual people and we all have different personalities. Okay?
Right.
So hopefully that puts, everyone kind of on the same page in terms of what reparenting is and what trauma is. So what happens is traumas, unmet needs, and wounds are catastrophic for us individually, right? so again, just clarifying, reparenting is not just for parents, okay? So reparenting is the idea that every single one of us connects back to our inner child, which still exists within us today. So little Sakina is still inside of you today. There might be an Amina in the audience. There might be a Muhammad in the audience. Little Muhammad is there. Little, everyone has their own. I've got my little speaker inside, right?
Yeah.
So reparenting is connecting back to them and fulfilling those unmet needs, nurturing those wounds and those traumas, and releasing what we need to release. Okay, so it's for everyone. It's not just for parents.
Okay.
What happens is, and you mentioned this so beautifully, Sister Sakina, as well, that the childhood that we have and the way we're raised ends up becoming a blueprint for us. Okay, so it's a blueprint that we hold in our mind, unconsciously, subconsciously, but we also hold it in our body and our energy house at the same time. So we hold on to this blueprint, which is formed in childhood, and that blueprint is what we learned through our parents and through our childhood. So, for example, it could be the blueprint of how we show love to others. It could be how we receive love and how we feel comfortable receiving love. It might be how we connect with others. So it's not just marital spouse, not just kids. It's also parents, friends, colleagues. How we connect with people in general. Also, what we like and what we're good at, what our internal voice, our internal critic is. All of this stems back to childhood. Okay, it's a blueprint.
Right.
So, and what happens is that doesn't go away. It becomes us, and it rules the roost. That inner child comes out, and little Sakina will come out, and when a challenging situation will come, she will tell you how to act in that. She will tell you how to respond or react, rather than you doing it yourself. And until we reparent that inner child, she will always come out and do what she's learned from childhood, whether it's unhealthy or healthy. She will come out and do that. Okay, so this is what reparenting is about. Okay, so what happens is that blueprint pretty much blindfolds us in our relationships when when challenging situations come up, when we get triggered, we're blindfolded, and the way we show up is because that's what she's learned or that's what he's learned. And this is where reparenting comes in, right? So again, because this is a parenting session, it also, our inner child or our wounded inner child blueprint also shows up and tells us how to parent our children, okay? So whether to say, I love you or not, whether to give them a hug or not, whether you feel comfortable giving them a hug, which children's, off school club you might send them to, whether you encourage them to splash about in muddy puddles or not, or whether, you encourage creativity or the hobbies, or, even their career path and what they choose to go into education. This inner child, the blueprint, will raise our kids. And if he or she is unhealthy, it will raise our kids unhealthy.
Unhealthy.
So
Absolutely.
we continue being in that mode of survival mode instead of thriving. And until we reparent, those blueprints and things within us end up being fragmented like a puzzle. Okay, so we won't even consciously remember this blueprint. They're hidden, and it's only when we begin reparenting and begin this self-analysis, self-excavation, self-awareness, that these puzzle pieces start coming back together, and then we can start understanding what is good, what could we keep, what should we let go of, what should we sieve out, and so on and so forth. So reparenting is it's the beautiful, hard but beautiful journey of bringing this back together, reconnecting you back to your inner child, and releasing what no longer serves us, because some things we're holding on to and they don't serve us anymore. They worked in childhood, but they don't work anymore. So this is the process of reparenting, to just let go, release, nurture, and understand who you are.
It's very interesting how you've put this. I mean, I would have never thought that inner child of yours, still coexists with you, as you said. If you want to make a decision in some, in a certain situation, and then probably because of, I think it also, the environment also affects, because as a child, if I've perceived, my parents doing certain things in a certain way, or the
Mm-hmm.
environment that I was basically brought up in, that also I think has a major effect on the way I would react to a
Mm-hmm.
situation, right?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
let's get more into this now, Sabika. I'm finding this totally interesting. I want to know
Can I
that.
just, sorry, can I just
Yes,
interrupt for 1 second? I just want to give a blanket trigger warning.
yes,
Sometimes these conversations can bring up triggers for people and certain emotions. So just encouraging all of the attendees and beautiful souls out there to look after yourself. If you do feel triggered at any point, feel free to turn off camera or do what you need to do. Grab yourself a glass of water. Look after you. So just putting it out there in case anything comes up. So go ahead.
thanks. All right, so you've heard that from Sabika, and please, if you have any questions, feel free to send us your questions in the comment section. It's open, and we can ask Sabika directly, and she'll answer it to you, or you can privately even DM her anytime. So, Sabika, you can just let them know your Instagram handle or whatever contact that you would like them to contact you in private,
Yeah.
right? So, yeah.
Should we do that at the end, or you want to do that? Should I just?
Actually, we've even put up your link tree
Oh,
link
perfect.
in the screen, so everybody can see that as well. You can always
Excellent.
contact Sabika. That, yeah, we've just put that on the screen
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
there's the link that has been sent out has actually got, and I'm going to refer to this, as we go in the session. There's
Yeah.
a range of freebies on there. So there's journaling prompts and some activities and things like that that you can use for you
Yeah.
to start this journey yourself. So I want you to just start. Okay. So this is me saying, this is my gift to you. Be independent, do what you need to do. And, if this session impacts you, go and start there.
Yeah.
Of course, my contact is there as well.
Absolutely. Okay, so Sabika, let's get on to what are the impacts of a wounded inner child on our relationships? How would I come to know this? What are some of the symptoms? How would I come to know?
Ooh, okay. Huge. And this is why specifically the work that I do, I niche in the area of relationships because I know that it impacts hugely in a destructive way the relationships that we have. And it's not just parental, and we are going to go on to that. It's not just intimate. It's also relationship with our parents. It's also relationship with our siblings, also relationship with colleagues and friends, and it hugely interrupts relationships as a whole, but it can destroy the closer relationships. And I coach plenty of clients and do workshops where marriages have broken up, divorces have happened, people have separated. So much is happening in our society that is connected back to the wounded inner child. Okay, so impacts are huge, and the reason that how these show up and the telltale signs of this is when people are unable to be vulnerable. Okay, vulnerability is a huge, scary thing, and people find it difficult to be vulnerable with themselves, which
Yeah.
makes it difficult to be vulnerable with your partner or your spouse or even your sibling or your parents. People are scared to love people because since childhood they might have wanted to love their parents or attached to their parents, but they weren't able to. So it was an insecure attachment. So they got wounded.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So being unable or scared to love someone, being scared to be loved back. So we want to be loved. That's what we want as human beings. But somehow
Absolutely. Yeah.
we self-destruct and do things which doesn't
Yeah.
allow us to actually feel that love. Feel it
True.
really deep. We get scared to feel it, right? We get scared to speak up our needs. We end up being people pleasers. We are unable to express our emotions, and that goes back to the vulnerability. We armor up, and again, it blocks that love that Allah wants us to feel, but we block it because we're too scared. People have self-protective strategies, coping mechanisms, addictions. I mean, the list goes on. Anything that is destructive within you is likely because the inner child has learned to self-destruct. because
Yeah.
all we want as human beings from birth is just to attach. We just want to securely attach to parents and and carers. And when we aren't able to do that, then we think, oh, it didn't work before, so it's not going to work now, so I'm just going to self-destruct instead. And that's how I'm going to cope. Because it's normal for us to feel that. Yeah. So,
Right.
The impacts are huge.
Yeah.
And
I think
what happens?
Sorry to interrupt you. You said that having an attachment from childhood is very important, right? So does this also, if for example, there are working parents or there are single parents due to whatever reasons, right? Does this also have an impact on the identity of the child as they, develop into adults?
The situation or the model of the house shouldn't impact how attached a child feels to a parent. It's how the parent is to the child. So there could be a single mom, there could be a single dad, there could be working mom, dad at home, there could be dad at work, mom at home, there could be mom and dad. Yeah. The concept is, how are you attaching to your child? If there's a blueprint of unhealthiness, then it's blocking you and blindfolding you from attaching and receiving your child in the way that they need. So the house situation doesn't matter. And people often say, when it comes to divorced households or single parent households, it's better for people to divorce and raise the child in a loving way rather than be in a house which is destructive, right? So it just goes back to that foundational concept of connect with the child, and that's how they will feel secure and loved. And often the reason why we find it difficult to be in relationships, specifically intimate relationships, is because of that wounded inner child. And we as Muslims believe we are made in pairs. Okay.
Yeah.
And when we're made in a pair, the purpose of that pairing is together. It's very difficult. I'm sure everyone, most people will raise their hands. It's very difficult to work through marriage together and to be in that partnership. But it's difficult for a reason. It's difficult because you're supposed to connect. You're supposed to trigger each other, because that awareness helps you to connect back to Allah together. Okay, so that pairing is made to connect to Allah. But what's happening is the wounded inner child isn't allowing us to connect. We just keep bouncing off each other. And what happens with that is we end up filling a void. So the wounded inner child, who isn't securely attached, keeps bouncing off, still has a void inside. So each of us still has a void, still has a gap inside of us. And that void, that inner child, which is the void, keeps saying, please see me, please love me, please attach to me. And when that doesn't happen, we feel rejected, we feel abandoned all over again, because that's what happened in childhood. And this is sadly what leads to divorce, infidelity, separated households, addictions. And I'm talking about people from our community, addictions with sex, drugs, alcohol, shopping, work. This is the void. And until we heal and connect back to that inner child, we are going to constantly keep trying to fill that void. And what happens is, and this is the impact that it has on children, that when we are like this as a couple in the house, a husband and wife, the children feel the energy.
Right.
The children. Right. And this is how the generational trauma cycle kind of repeats. So if we don't heal our inner child, the impact of those wounds impacts our intimate spouse, but then it also impacts our children, because we're passing on those wounds all over again.
Right.
Generational trauma.
Yes, generational trauma. I mean, this is a vast topic. Again, one can just have a lot of series on this. And I really, wish that somehow we just break this generational trauma. The concept of it. Yes, we have, but I wish it could have been done more. Like there's still some loopholes here and there today, but
Absolutely.
yeah, alhamdulillah, it's much better. I mean, from the
Yeah,
past, what?
and it's, I always believe it's a lifelong journey. Just take that first step. And even if, I'm talking to the attendees here, even if that first
Yeah,
step is opening up that link, picking one of those journaling prompts and answering one question, that's your first step.
yeah,
Allah will lead you the rest of the way. You take the
yeah,
first step, you will start ending generational trauma, and our children will have traumas as well. They will, because we've
yes,
tried our best, but they will still have traumas, but it will be
true.
reduced. And if they do the
Yep,
work, it will then be reduced even further, and so on
exactly,
and so forth.
definitely.
So,
Yes, yes, absolutely. We can see that reduction even today. Alhamdulillah, there's a lot of positivity. The mindsets are really now evolving and changing. So Alhamdulillah, we see all of
alhamdulillah,
that.
alhamdulillah.
Sabika, I want to now move on to the common challenges today that we as adults are facing in unlearning, relearning, and reparenting ourselves. And why do you think is it necessary to reparent ourselves?
Okay. Challenges. It's very challenging.
Right?
It's
Lots of them.
really, it's honestly, and every time I take on a new client, I say a number of times, this is a really difficult journey. And it's really
Yeah.
difficult because you have to sit with yourself. You have to sit with yourself, you have to sit with your ego, you have to sit with things that, we subconsciously just don't want to know anymore. So it is
Oh,
a really difficult journey. So there are so many challenges that come up. But to kind of structure a bit, I'm going to answer in a three-part kind of way. Okay, so
right.
I'm going to answer it in terms of intellectually, what the common challenges are, emotionally, what the common challenges are, as well as on a spiritual level, what these common challenges are when we're on this journey of unlearning, relearning, and reparenting ourselves.
Right.
Okay, so in terms of the intellectual challenges, like I mentioned before, all we want from birth is attachment. Even I want attachment. Okay, all of
Yes.
us. That's all we want. We just want to be attached and
We do.
loved. Okay, that's it, right? So
Yes.
we just want this attachment, and what we do, what we've learned from childhood, is just to feel attached, lose ourselves. So we
Mm,
lose, and this is the puzzle that kind of breaks up. We lose certain parts of ourselves just because we want to feel loved and attached, right? And this is kind of where people pleasing comes into it. We please
mhm.
others just to and become what they want, just
Yeah.
so we can feel loved and attached, right? They can love and attach to us.
Yeah.
So what happens is um, the challenge of that comes up when it comes to reparenting is
Mm.
that we have to relearn that knowledge. Okay, we have to
Ah,
relearn it. That knowledge of self-acceptance, accept myself for who I am. Self-awareness, become aware of who I am. Love myself, self-love. Okay, it's not a woo-woo cliche kind of word. Self-love.
yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
understand your own emotional intelligence. Understand what your body is communicating. We've lost touch with our body. I don't know if
mm,
anybody has read the book The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. If you have, put an emoji in the chat. Really, really good book. It basically is the concept that the body holds on to these emotions, and it communicates with us a lot earlier on than our mind would. Okay, so the intellectual challenge of reparenting and relearning this is relearning what our body is communicating, understanding our
right.
energy, understanding our intuition and what our intuitive godly voice is. And
Right.
what we want to now teach our kids is ask them questions to overcome this challenge of repeating that generational cycle of them not knowing, is
Yeah.
asking them simple questions like, what would you like to do? Instead of saying this is what we're doing, ask them,
Yeah.
what would you like to do? Give them
Yeah.
options. Ask them, would you like to do this or this? Give them a preference. So it not only will reduce the wounds that they have, but also helps them to be a lot more independent and confident
Right.
human beings. And that's what we want. We want confident human beings who know how to make decisions that are part
Right.
of our society. And also it's noticing what our children individually need. So I've got 3 children, alhamdulillah, but each of them are 3 very different individual. So I feel like I have to be 3 different moms. So actually, parenting makes everything a lot harder. And that's why I say, but
Interesting.
see, Jannah doesn't come easily under our feet, does it? So even if it's the case of asking what kind of sports clubs they want to go to, not all kids are sporty. Not all kids like football or swimming. Not all kids like to do drama. So it's really looking individually at each child and saying, what is it that you like? So it's intellectually understanding ourselves so we can understand our children.
True.
The second kind of layer of the common challenge that might come up is the emotional challenge. So we are challenged because we've learned to not feel. Okay, I'm a big feeler. I've learned to feel through reparenting. I promote feelings and being sad and holding on to them. And often, I'll have people sitting in front of me and they'll apologize for crying. And I remind them, don't apologize.
Yeah.
Because in childhood we might have heard,
like
stop crying.
Right? It's something like it's very subconscious. Yeah.
Well, the subconscious in a child. Because usually we've learned in childhood, or we've heard in childhood, stop crying. We don't have time for that. Or stand up, pick up, go, move, do this. And no blame, because I know how it is when kids cry. But when we tell our kids, don't cry, then we learn not to cry. So in adulthood, when we cry, we apologize and we say, so sorry, I'm crying. I look ugly when I'm crying. It's like, no, you don't. You look beautiful. And it's a release. It's a somatic release of emotions, and you need to. So one of the emotional challenges that we come across when reparenting is relearning all of this stuff to stop avoiding pain, to stop avoiding emotions. Because if we do that, then we can't connect to ourselves. And if we can't connect to ourselves, we can't connect to others. We can't. And then we can't connect to Allah at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think it's what we've been always listening to, fill your cup first, right? Before you want to help out and fill others' cups, because filling your energy is far more important as well. If you're not going to rejuvenate your energy, you won't be able to give out to your family members. And that's why they say take a break. Don't take in a lot as well at the same time. It's very good to balance it out and relax. Because, so I think that's where you're heading to.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you don't look after yourself, you can't look after anyone else. Absolutely. And it's one of the things that I do with my children. They are very aware of Mama needs to have her time so I can come back and be a better mama. And they know, they can see it. They can see the change. And it's us verbalizing and saying these things to our children when we need something. We're human too. So they can learn healthier ways to, for example, express emotions. Like, if you're annoyed, you can be angry. It's okay. It's an emotion that Allah gave you, but express it in a healthy way. You're angry, you're frustrated, go and squeeze a pillow. Go for a run around the house or, around the garden, do some star jumps, talk, write it out, journal, draw. So these are healthy ways of how, if we learn to do that, we can pass that on to our kids and get them to do these things as well. So, one of the other things that I do with my kids is I let them know that they've always got a safe space anyway, but they have this code that they can tap into with me. And if there's something special or private that they want to talk about, I mean, oldest is 10, so there's nothing really big, there's nothing really, huge going on there. But in terms of just personal, my friend said this, he said that, she said this, that kind of stuff. This is what it is at this age, right? But they know they come to me and say, "Can I have some mama time, please?"
Nice one.
The other 2 are gone. They're not in the room. He or she, so my son or daughter, can say whatever they want to say. There's no phone distractions. They can just say what they need to say. And when they know they can express their emotions and say what they need to say, and I'm receiving that, then they'll continue to feel safe enough to feel and say and share, which is what we
Right.
don't feel safe doing because we didn't have that when we were growing up.
Absolutely. So Sabika, also, sometimes there are some very personal things that, sometimes a child maybe holds back to or fears to
Mm-hmm.
be able to share it with their parents. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
especially if it's, something very, very personal. Maybe it's got to do with a friend at school or something that, they cannot, I mean, they're just shy to talk to you about it. So what do you do in such a situation? How do you, get to sort of, what do you say, like gain that trust, to
Mm-hmm.
give them that very secure environment and a comfortable space so that they can share it with you?
Mm. Okay, so just clarifying, I'm not a parenting expert. I can share tips and things like that from my own
Yeah.
experience as being a mum.
Yeah.
But what I do with clients and with other people is I help them to understand how reparenting yourself can
Yeah.
help you to create that space for your child, right? So just wanted to clarify that. So when
Okay.
you start reparenting yourself and you go on that journey of understanding your emotions, using tools like journaling, not reducing your own emotions, giving yourself that safe space to say what you need to say, then
Right.
you'll see the benefits of creating that space for your child. If you're not doing that for yourself, there's no way you're going to do that for your child because you're not going to
Mm,
see the benefit in doing it, right? And of course, we
right.
can find that space with Allah and anywhere else as well in terms of safe space. When it comes to children, talking from my own experience,
Yeah.
you have to be able to remove what's going on in here because there's a billion and one things that are going on in here throughout the day. Remove that,
Mm,
put it to the side, and notice your child and love them and remind them that they always have that safe space with you. Okay, that's the first thing, to communicate that you have that safe space. When they know you have that safe space and you take them to a side room or you take them to the corner or you take them to somewhere where there's quiet and no one else is going to interrupt, that's where you take this off. Okay, so it's called a hatch. You take that off, you move it away, so they know you're there 100%. When you do that once or twice and you're actually listening, I swear to you, wallahi, they will trust you. You just need to be that space for them without judgment, without anger or frustration or judgment in terms of I'm going to go and talk to so and so and so and so, because sometimes children just want to tell us to release. They don't want you to go and talk to the teacher. They don't want you to go and talk to the head teacher or talk to the parent's mum. They just want to release it, and you can talk through whatever steps you need to talk through. Hug, give them a kiss, say I love you, thank you for coming to tell me, that's really special, you're very brave, da 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 da, and off you pop, go off and make your biryani. Yeah.
Nice. Right. That's an interesting way to do it. Absolutely. They love that. Yeah, it's like a reward, towards the end, like a surprise. So they like it. Yeah. And okay,
Mm.
so a very important question that I want to ask you, and I think this is something that's probably boggling the minds of many parents as we are
Mhm.
witnessing a lot of the global crisis right now that's been unfolding in front of our eyes. So
Mhm.
the messages that we are picking from our social media feeds are
Mhm.
having a drastic effect on each one of us. How can we specifically create a healing environment for ourselves and our
Mhm.
children today, given the current
Mhm.
global crisis situation?
Okay. It's very difficult what we're all going through, um, because we're unprepared for it. It's not something that it's weird because it feels like we're a world away from it, but the world is in our hands and we can see it all the time. So our brain doesn't know how to react to it. It doesn't know if this should become a trauma. Should this become a wound? Should this become I'm living this right now? So it's very confusing for the mind. That's not how we were created. Okay.
Right.
It will always start with us, and I'm always going to say that it's always going to start with us as parents. Okay. So in terms of how we create that healing environment for ourselves and our children, is that it's going to start with us. So think about how we are receiving this news. Okay. When initially the situation of Gaza opened up, and all of these catastrophic situations rose, I felt a lot of overwhelm, and I noticed that in myself. So I would have my phone, and of course I use Instagram a lot because of the work that I do. So these things would be coming up. I felt so much overwhelm that I stopped using Instagram. And of course that impacted my business, right? And it's because I'm very sensitive to energy, and I just stopped using it for maybe, I think, 1.5 months or something like that. And the reason why I stopped using it is because, yes, it was so difficult for us to see, and it's something that we can't even imagine. But also I would mentally be comparing myself to, oh my God, what am I doing? My friend is doing this woman from the community is doing this uncle is doing this, and everyone's doing something or another, but I can't bring myself to doing that, because so I would be comparing myself, and what I ended up doing is isolating myself from my phone, from my Instagram, from people, because I didn't know how to react and respond to it. Right? So first step is for you to create that healing environment is to know yourself. Okay. When you know yourself, then you can understand what your kids should know individually. Children should become aware. We need to make them resilient children who have this awareness. And the way that I worked with it is, I know that all 3 of my children are quite creative, and so am I. So I gave them the awareness, I gave them the passion and the power, but I brought it through creativity. So there was a project happening I'm in Birmingham, in West Midlands, and there was a project running, and what we ended up doing was creating a model of, it was called a child of Gaza, and it was a model, a 3D model of hands, and a child of Gaza was written on the hands, and my kids wrote a poem, and it interpreted the situation for us, right, in a creative way. So this is how my children understood the situation in an age-appropriate way. So for you to create a healing environment for yourself and your kids, make sure, especially for your children, information is age-appropriate. Language is age-appropriate. Content is age-appropriate. These things are becoming traumas for our children because they don't understand what's happening. They don't listen. It needs to be age-appropriate content, age-appropriate discussion, personality-appropriate language, content, discussions. So each of my children, I wouldn't say everything to them, because I know one of them would take it to bed, have nightmares, but then wake up fresh. The other one would take it to bed, have nightmares, and keep it in her mind for the next 3 weeks. The other one doesn't really mind. So, you have to think about how you're interacting with children and what you're giving them, right? Look, at the end of the day, we want to raise our children resilient. Our children are given to us as an amana, okay? It is our duty and responsibility to raise them as the ansar of the imam of our time. And for us to do that, we have to understand ourselves. We have to reparent ourselves. We have to understand our inner child, so we can parent our children individually without blindfolds on and without seeing them from our own unmet needs. So for us to create this healthy environment for them, know yourself so you can filter out what is important for each and every one of them individually. So we're not raising our children as privileged children as much as we want to try not to. We still end up doing that because we live in the West, but we're trying not to, right? We want to raise them to be resilient, put them in situations where they will learn resiliency. We're a world away. We can't imagine what's going on out there.
Absolutely.
But we can show them here. Show them people who are underprivileged. Show them people who have to ask for money to get their lunch or their dinner. Tell them stories, teach them morals, and just help them to understand their values, and most importantly, help them to embed all of this into their personalities by becoming it yourself first, so you can then role model it to your children.
Right. Absolutely. I agree to this. I mean, it's very important to create that awareness in our houses. I mean, to stay ignorant and silent about the matter is not a solution, and it's not something which is even encouraged in our religion. So, as you said, the way you are feeling overwhelmed. Um,
Absolutely.
it definitely has an emotional impact on yourself, and
Mhm.
sometimes even I was noticing this, like I was getting angry or sort of lashing on my frustration in the house for no reason, and then I realized that it's because of what my mind was being fed, because of the footages and the horrific
Mhm.
images that was popping on my social media. And for some reason, it was like people got so obsessed, on their screens to know what's happening, like every minute,
Mm.
every second,
Mm.
every
Mm.
hour. So I think this was what was becoming a sort of a distraction to give attention to your family and your household matters more and your
Yeah.
chores. And I think that was a challenge that I think as parents, all of us were still are going through. I'm sure.
Mm.
Of course, the thing isn't over. It's getting worse day by
Yeah,
day.
of course, of course.
Uh,
And you know
yeah,
what I said to, so my husband was getting sucked in, and it's a good thing.
yeah,
We want to be sucked in the sense of healthily reviving. We want to revive ourselves,
yeah,
right? But for me,
right.
the distraction is, well, what are you doing about it? What are you
Mm,
doing about the situation?
mhm,
Instead of just
right.
scrolling, which is fine, there's a healthy amount of it to inform ourselves and to revive that passion. But what are we actually
Yeah,
doing about it? And this is why
true.
I came, in these past few days, I've
Yeah,
revived my passion even more so towards reparenting, because the
yeah,
Ansar of the Imam of our time are in our house. How are we raising
true.
them? And we can't raise them in the way that he wants, without triggers, without unmet
Yeah,
needs, without wounds. Trust me, the Imam of our time does not want people who are triggered. And the only way we can do
true.
that is if we do this first.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
it always starts with you. It always starts with you. And until we know ourselves,
Anyways,
we don't know.
yes, absolutely. So, Sabika, we are almost nearing towards the end of our program, and
Mhm.
I'm sure everybody is, really benefiting from today's discussion. Um, so, for a concluding message, what would your final concluding message be for today's program in terms of reparenting, or some of the techniques that you would like to share that we can practically apply in our daily routine, or anything that you want to share with us?
Depends how long I've got. Lasting point, I think, is until we heal, we psychologically remain a child. As parents, we do not want a child raising a child, and that's literally what happens until you reparent yourself. So accept in yourself that little you still exist. Ask yourself powerful questions. Go and join that link. Click on the link. You will find questions there to help you start this journey. And this is going to help you to connect with yourself. Until you connect with yourself, quoting the hadith by Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam of man arafa nafsahu faqad arafa rabbahu. He who knows
Yes,
his own self knows his Lord.
right.
If you do not know yourself, you will not remove the layers between you and Allah. Remove the layers between you and yourself first, so you can remove the layers between you and Allah. And then you will embody that connection to Allah, so you can role model it to your children. And at the end of the day, our responsibility is to raise our children individually as they need, rather than from our own met needs, so we can raise them as the Ansar of the Imam.
Absolutely. And one last thing, Sabika, I want you to repeat the name of the book that you recommended earlier. to read, so that we can just put the name of the book in the chat for our viewers, because somebody has asked about this. So if you could just share that again.
So it's called The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk.
All right. Okay. So you can just forward it to me. I will send this text to our team.
So it's called The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk.
All right.
Amazing. Go read it. It's all about how the body communicates emotions to us,
Right.
which is a lot easier and quicker than our mind does.
All right. Okay. If there are any questions, we are still here. The chat box is open. Please feel free to send in some interesting, good doubts or questions, whatever you have in your mind. And Sabika is here to answer. And if not, then you can always contact her privately, or you can let us know your questions and we will forward it to Sabika. Please make sure to share this program as much as possible. I found this program honestly very beneficial, and I hope that I can
wish I
also
had
apply
longer.
this in my life. Right? Yeah, absolutely. You know, Sabika, right now I feel like, our mental health is like, I don't know, it's pretty much distracted and everything is on a toll. Even if you just look at the time, the way it's speeding up, and with a lot going on, I feel like right now, you really want to turn life into, everything should become like minimalistic. I'm tired of, looking into everything being so materialistic. It's like I can't have too much on my plate, sometimes. And especially when it comes to parenting, I feel it's such a huge responsibility. Like half of your time and energy just goes into parenting and everything. So the fact that, you've today touched upon this topic about how we can reparent ourselves, I think this is very important, because as you said, everything starts from us reparenting ourselves, so that we can, create a positive life for our children, inshallah. So I want to thank Sabika for today. Thank you so much for your precious time. It was a pleasure and an honor to have you, inshallah. Looking forward to have you, inshallah, more in our upcoming programs.
Honestly, it was my honor. My intention is to serve, and I'm hoping that attendees and the beautiful souls out there receive something, even if it's just one thing that you take away. That's amazing. That's exactly why you were here today. Allah is the best of kindness.
Inshallah. Thank you to all our viewers for tuning in on today's program. And we hope that you really benefited from today's conversation. Please make sure to give us a thumbs up, and do share this episode as much as possible. And inshallah, we'll be bringing in more of such discussions in the future as well. I would like to bid you all farewell. Have a lovely evening. This is your host, Sakina Habib, signing off. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.